I would like to start by hailing my dear friend Osman Kavala as being a symbol of freedom of expression. Osman, with whom we have worked to support developing cultural actions and initiatives in different cities of Turkey, in collaboration with European, Caucasus, and Arab countries and institutions, with Syria being among them, is now in jail for almost 4 years, and he is kept in solitary confinement. There is not yet any evidence nor a serious accusation against him. In the beginning, I was tended to think that he was a sort of a hostage, with his name on the negotiation tables of international bargainings. And as time went by, despite acquittals, international and Turkish Supreme Court decisions of release in his favor, he was and still is imprisoned. A prisoner Kafka himself will be ashamed of. I believe that Osman, being virtually and de facto tortured all these years, was simply a consequence of him being an exemplary citizen, firmly believing in fundamental rights, peace and mutual understanding among peoples. And I ended up thinking that now we are all turned into hostages as dignified citizens. I do not want to give an exhaustive, open-ended list of infringements of freedom of expression and censorship in my country. It would be too long, discouraging, hence unproductive. And I have to admit that it has become almost a corollary of artistic, intellectual, and political thought and action, so that I can now assume that it lays somehow in the very nature of governments. And it seems that it follows two patterns: the vicissitudes of successful or failed military coups, and the self-perception of power by different governments. The weak they feel, the more oppressive they become. Well, even if we abstract the Ottoman period, our soon-to-be 100-years-old republic has already created a history which could be read based on bans and censorship. I would like to stress two types of obstacles on the way of the freedom of expression. The first one being fire. We have experienced a chain of fires that were set to burn all, be it estates, crops, cultural and artistic premises, and yes, human beings, all considered unwanted. The second one is self-censorship, which becomes almost a tacit way for ill-expressed thoughts and creation. And the frequency of these two types of obstacles leads to the normalization of bans, which is the worst type. Nazım Hikmet, the worldly acclaimed poet of the Turkish language, had to flee to live and die in exile in Soviet Russia after many years spent in jail. Now, Hikmet's poems are read at each and every corner of the country. It is not surprising that a city like Berlin has become populated with artists and intellectuals from Turkey nowadays. Their expressions will always find ingenious forms and channels to subvert bans and reach their target, the people. Lastly, I would like to mention a potential threat for the freedom of expression, especially in the post-COVID-19 era. The cultural and artistic life in Turkey seems to be narrowing down between a subsidized and highly manipulated official sector and a strong private culture and art production, bringing forth the brands of industry and finance moguls. The independents, the precarious champions of freedom of expression, will have to search for all sorts of conviviality and solidarity with peers, both in the country and abroad, for survival and resilience.